Hey, it's James from Marketing for Restaurants here, and welcome to episode 106 of Secret Sauce, the Restaurant Marketing Podcast, the top 10 tips for restaurant website SEO.
Some restaurants are quiet, lose money, and the owner works 70 hours a week. Other restaurants are busy, profitable, and the owners work a few hours a day. What's the difference? They have a secret sauce. Join James from Marketing for Restaurants as he helps you come up with your recipe for restaurant success. Your secret sauce.
Okay, so yes, I spoke incredibly verbose about the difference between business SEO and technical SEO last week. If you've missed that episode, make sure that you go back and check it out. Also, make sure that you're having a listen to Google Analytics. Google Analytics, I did a couple of podcasts on how to actually run through Google Analytics for your website. And I think that that's a really important tool that you as a business owner should really be thinking about getting a good understanding of, because it enables you to really sort of find out not only what part of your marketing is working and what isn't, but also what your customers are looking for and what they aren't looking for. So I want to finish off briefly with some of the tricks that the SEO people use. I have described the SEO industry as the wild, wild west, and because there are a lot of cowboys out there. There's a lot of people who are well and truly prepared to take your money for little or no service. The next thing that a lot of people do is monthly contracts, and I have seen small businesses with not a huge amount of income paying $1,000 a month for SEO because they thought that that was the panacea that was going to help them. I've spoken to people who run businesses that do this, and they can't actually explain to me what it is that they do for their monthly basis. Obviously, there's reporting. They say that they check a lot of things, but a lot of the work that gets done, and the most important part of the work that gets done, is in that first month. So when you're doing that business SEO, working out the keywords that you want to rank for, then actually doing the work to get that done. Once that's been done, then you're pretty much often you're good to go. And let's face it, for most small businesses that don't have a huge marketing budget, your SEO is going to be something that you're going to pretty much do a fair amount of work on, then probably set and forget with only little bespoke changes. And those bespoke changes occur in the business SEO part of it. So you're going to think, well, here's a customer that I might like to target. Let's create a page. Let's do the SEO. Let's come up with a marketing plan. Let's make sure that we can deliver on that product. And that is how you would change your SEO. So you might come up with a hottest burger challenge. You know, this is the hottest burger in Australia. We use Spirit Naga chilies. You have to sign this waiver. You could go to hospital. 5 people have died eating it. Maybe don't put that in. Maybe don't cook it if that many people have died. It's probably too dangerous. But something along those lines, and then you would run with that. Now, of course, this is one of those things that's probably going to work better on social media because people probably aren't going for that experience straight up. They're not searching for it. But it gives you an example of the kind of thing that you would do from a business SEO point of view that would drive your technical SEO, and that's actually through that page creation process. And of course, you still want to rank for that though, because if people see it on Facebook and then Facebook's really hard to find something that one of my biggest frustrations with Facebook is you see a post and then you might see it on your mobile and then you go to your desktop and of course it's a different feed and then it's like, who is that company that said that thing that was really good about that other thing? I knew there was something I needed to check and you can never find it. If someone knows that there's a really hot chili burger, if they Google it, you want to go, yeah, that's the guys. Yep, that's the place I want to go. That's going to be epic. So in that monthly contract, there may or may not be anything in there that they're actually doing apart from producing reports. And most of those reports are produced pretty much automatically. And that can be really very costly. I know from speaking from some people who run these sort of businesses, I was talking to one guy and he knew that his average customer stayed with him for 6 months. His sales team worked really hard to get new customers. They were filling a fairly leaky bucket because people were only hanging around for the 6-month mark, and some of them were leaving a lot quicker than that. Obviously, they had some customers who were quite happy knowing that they were paying for having SEO done. They weren't actually checking to see if it was being done and would stay with them for 12 months, but they were always trying to fill a leaky bucket. You don't want to be that customer. You want to be making sure that you're holding your marketing team, every marketing dollar, you want to make sure that it's accountable, that you're getting a good ROI on it. So be very wary of monthly contracts. So there's some of the tricks that people charge. They often overcharge for a service that's really quite minimal. And be really careful if they're not asking you a lot of probing questions about your business and you don't know what you want to be doing, what search terms that you want to be coming up for. Don't go to them because, sometimes they'll be looking at search volumes and things like that, but they don't really understand your business. And, I find that it's a lot easier to do SEO when you work intimately in that business because you kind of get a feel for what kind of terms are going to work and what kind of terms aren't. For a lot of people who are just generalist SEO guys, they're going to struggle to work out the kind of content that needs to go into a website. And when it comes to your business plan, you're going to know your business plan better than anyone else. And that's why you want to be saying, this is the kind of customer that I'm after. And we don't really want those kind of customers approaching us because they're very difficult to serve or we don't make a lot of money out of them. Don't be afraid to be thinking like that. So now on to the top tips that we've got around restaurant website SEO. And these are the things that we're using all the time to help our customers find more customers and turn them into repeat customers. I'm basically sharing with you the process that we sort of go through, partially to highlight, some of the issues that people are sort of missing out on and to go through what actual work does get done. Now, the first thing that you've got to do is you've got to pick a platform that you're going to build your website on. And this is quite a contentious issue. There's a couple of platforms out there, some free ones, platforms like Wix or Squarespace. And I personally don't think that they are very good for SEO. It's interesting, Wix themselves have done a lot of they've produced a lot of search engine optimized content around Wix SEO because I think that they don't want people to, when you look at blog articles, a lot of people do say that Wix isn't as good for SEO as WordPress is. I personally think, though, that the issue comes down to the fact that the tools, it's not Wix itself that is bad for SEO. It's the fact that it doesn't have the tools available. And I think that this goes for Squarespace as well. Both of them, and I find that people with Wix and Squarespace websites, if they're not the basic ones, and it's interesting because some people will actually use one of these free platforms. Some web developers will use these free platforms to deliver websites. Some of these websites can look amazing. They are really, I think that they're probably easier to create visually beautiful websites than a traditional WordPress website. So WordPress is blessed with the Yoast add-in, and we'll talk a little bit more later about that. But Wix and Squarespace and a lot of the other platforms, in my opinion, and it seems to be the way with a lot of websites that come across with very similar content that then get the technical SEO treatment, tend to perform better is what we have found when we've migrated websites. And I know that there's quite a few people. Wix is great if you need a free website, but I think that most businesses don't need a free website. What they need is actually a lead generation tool, and the two are actually really, really different. There are tools out there for both Wix and Squarespace, and there are people out there who know how to do that. But I think that when it comes to doing technical SEO, there's not a large number of people who can handcraft the kind of things that we're going to be talking about today. A lot of the things that we're talking about today are the kind of things that I would be doing if I produced a blog article. Now, I'm not a programmer, I'm not a developer, I don't build websites, but I produce content. And as the owner of the company, I think that that's my role. It's my responsibility. And it's really, really easy for me to be able to do this. I used to create a Word doc and then I'd send it through to developers. And then they were saying, you should be doing this yourself, James. You could actually write this in WordPress. I took the hint. And now, just because of the fact that I like to be able to do it and I can make sure that it's done the way that I want it done, I actually create the content in WordPress. It's very easy to do. And Yoast SEO is the tool that we use for our customers and for our own websites to ensure that the SEO gets done correctly. It will highlight a lot of the issues that we're going to talk about. It will highlight those issues so that you've got a really good idea very quickly about how Google is going to be viewing that website when it goes to index it, when it goes through and crawls it. When you're thinking about developing a website or redoing a website, we think that websites probably have a use-by date for most businesses of between 3 to 5 years. and then they'll get completely redone just because of the fact that, technology changes. WordPress has just had a major release. Google changes fundamentally in the way that it does its indexing. So you want to be sure that you're using tools that are going to be able to present the information that's on the website in the best way possible to Google. So often entire platforms will change, particularly over 3 or 5 years. 3 or 5 years is a long time in internet time. So whether you're getting a new website or redoing it, have a think about the platform that you're going to be using and the SEO tools, particularly when you think about if it is that you're going to be creating content, how are you going to use these tools? And what sort of effect are you going to be able to generate? Because it's really about the number of people who are going to come in and see the content that you put on those pages. Now, the next one is a pretty easy one to fix, but it's one of those ones that I would say we probably see around 50% of websites today are not secure. So Google came out a little while ago and said that it was going to start preferring to send people to websites that were secure. Of course, Google wants people to use the internet as much as possible, and one of the big threats that Google sees is fraud, malware, all of these sorts of issues. So they're trying to make the internet as safe as possible for as many people as possible. Now, one of the things that makes browsing the web safer is when you go to a website that is HTTPS. The little S there means secure. And what it means is that the website that you're going to has got a certificate there. Now, the certificate does a couple of things. Firstly, it validates the identity of the website. It's not perfect. There can be fraud involved with it, but it does help with that. The other thing that is more important is that it means that the traffic that travels between the website and the browser is actually encrypted, so people can't go sniffing that traffic. Now, this is really important if you are sending things like email addresses or passwords or, God forbid, credit card details. Now, no one should be sending credit card details on their websites. They should be using payment gateways to do that. But with lots of man-in-the-middle type attacks, these fairly creative ways that hackers can get information from people and from websites, when it's HTTP, it's a lot easier to do that. And so Google is sending less traffic to HTTP websites than to HTTPS. And they've continued on with their commitment towards that, because in the top left-hand corner of the Chrome browser, when you go to a website that's HTTPS, you'll see the little lock there. When you go to a website that isn't HTTPS, it actually says not secure. So it warns people of websites that aren't secure anymore. So not only is it referring people to websites that aren't secure, it's actually warning people that the website isn't secure. And that means that any information that flows back and forward between the browser and the website is anyone can read it who's got access to that. So, and it could be people, if you're using Wi-Fi, it could be across the Wi-Fi, it could be people picking up internet traffic. There's all sorts of ways that this traffic can be intercepted and read. If it's not HTTPS, then it's not encrypted. So to fix that, you need to get a certificate and you need to get it installed on the website. It's not an overly difficult process, but it's one of those things that you need to go through. The next one is an issue that I think probably affects between 1 in 10 and 1 in 5 websites, and that is not being mobile optimized. Google is very, very, very big on mobile optimization, and that's because of the fact that they want people to have a good experience. A lot of Google's in a very, very strong place because it's got two pieces of the infrastructure that are required when people are on the web. The first thing is that they've got their search engine, so they know what people are looking for. The other thing that they've got that gives them a really, really powerful advantage is that they've got a browser. So they know that if someone clicks on a search link from Google to a website, they can then track what that person does. Now, is that website good or not? So Google's actually looking at people's behavior on your website. And in their indexing, they'll say, is this mobile friendly? Is the person browsing on a mobile phone? And they know that people who are on a mobile phone and go to a website that's not mobile friendly are not going to have a good experience. They're going to bounce back. They're going to look for another website. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to do all of the things that would indicate that they haven't provided a good experience. So Google is much, much, much less likely to give traffic or put a link up for someone, especially if they are browsing on a mobile phone, if it's not mobile friendly. And that is not a simple job to fix. You're going to have to change your entire theme. There's a whole heap of stuff. It's interesting. You see people who've got websites that have been hand-coded by, some guy who's been building websites for 20 years and, he's a purist and thinks that he needs to be doing it himself. Those websites are very, very difficult to make mobile optimized, because what I'm looking for in a mobile optimized website when I browse to a website is very, very different to what the person next to me. So I've got a Samsung S9. It's got a certain screen width. It's got a certain, I'm using Chrome on that. There are thousands and thousands of variations for when it comes to mobile optimization. You've got screen width. You've got choice of browser. You've got a whole heap of other user settings and preferences that dictate whether it's going to be mobile optimized. And that's why, so you need to do what's called a responsive design. Now, WordPress has got a lot of templates that are responsive by design, and that makes it really easy to come up with a mobile optimized website. But you need to be thinking about that and you need to be checking it. So it's an easy thing to check for. What I'll do is I'll include a link to a website. It's www.search.google.com/test/mobile friendly. There'll be a link in the show notes, so just click on that link. And it's page run by Google, is your web page mobile friendly? And you put the URL in, www.mylittlrestaurant.com, and from there, it takes a little bit of time, and it'll come up and it'll tell you whether a page is mobile friendly or not. Now, in some industries, like the restaurant industry, you'll find that some restaurants are getting 70 to 80% of their traffic from mobile, particularly in tourist areas. A very high proportion of people are using their mobiles to go to the websites. So having a mobile optimized website is really important because of the user experience that you're creating, but more so the fact that if someone is on a mobile and you've got a website that's not mobile friendly, then Google is not going to refer traffic to it. It's quite a good tool. I quite like it. It'll talk about some of the errors that'll come up with, so it'll let you know if you've got incompatible plugins. So anyone who's got Flash on their website, that's not compatible with most mobile browsers, so that's going to create issues. The viewport not being set, so that's actually telling where the website will tell the browser what size it wants to be set to. It'll tell you if you've got content that's wider than screen. And you see this, there'll be people, you'll have gone to a website on your mobile and it's not mobile optimized. And that means that you're sort of looking at just a little part of the page and you've got to scroll left and right and up and down to be able to see what it is that you're trying to look at. Up and down, that's fine. But left and right, no one should be scrolling left and right on a mobile optimized website when they're looking at it on a mobile. The text will be too small to read. And, I see this all the time. You go to a website and it's like, oh, God, how can I read that? It's just ridiculous. So you've got to zoom in, which means that, once again, you've blown out how you can't see the entire page, and that's because the text is too small. The other thing that's really important to think about is clickable elements too close together. What does that mean? Well, if you've got two buttons, if there's not enough distance in between them and someone's trying to fat finger them on a phone, it can be very difficult to make sure that you're hitting the right button. Now, the next thing on our list of things that you need to be thinking about for your website SEO is speed, and this is a big one. It's become a lot bigger, and for a couple of reasons. The number of people's attention span has decreased dramatically, and particularly if they're on a mobile. So we're coming back to mobile. You've got to make sure that your page is mobile friendly. You've got to make sure that it's quick as well. People on a mobile phone, they have a lower attention span. If the page is taking 5, 10, 15 seconds to load, they're much more likely to browse away and try and find the information that they need from somewhere else. So there's a quick and easy way to find out how quickly your website is loading, and that is to go to developers.google.com/speed/pagespeed/insights. I'll include a link in the show notes so you don't need to stress too much. And that will take you to a page that Google runs. And it's important. It's not how quick your page is. It's how quick does Google think your page is. That's the really important thing that I want to impress here, just because of the fact that these results, the results from these tests, because Google, as it goes through and browses a page, it's actually going to be seeing how quickly it responds to all of its requests. That feeds into how it's going to rank that website. So, very similar process. You plug your URL in and then it comes back with a number from 0 to 100. 100 being the fastest page ever, 0 being not too good. And then it comes in a color. Now, the interesting thing is they changed their algorithm from time to time, which means that it's worthwhile going back and having a look. We find that some of the websites that we look after, the page ranking will go down or improve sometimes without anything happening. Now, obviously, a customer can go in and put an image up, and that's one of the things it'll look for. And some of our customers will put, a 5 meg image in there. That's going to slow the website down just a little bit because the browser's got to download that entire image before it can show it. So that can make a big difference if you've got big images in there. But the algorithm changes as well are one of the things that can mean that it's one of these things that you probably want to, every 6 months, every 12 months, you want to have a look on it and just make sure that it doesn't need to be lightning fast. I find that there are very few lightning fast websites in there these days, but you want to be at least above 60, I think, and the higher up the better, because Google is going to refer more people to you. And it's going to do it for two reasons. One, Google has mandated that a fast web is a good web, so it wants to highlight websites that react very quickly. The other thing that's really important is, of course, that when users are on Chrome, they're going to be looking at it, and they're the ones who are likely to bounce back. They're likely to have a high bounce rate because the page is so slow. They're not getting the information they want as quickly as they want. And so Google will once again rank that page lower just because people are more likely to bounce. And they're bouncing because of the fact that the page takes so long to load. Now, it comes up with a few interesting metrics. First, contentful paint, first meaningful paint, speed index, first CPU idle, time to interactive, and estimated input latency. So I'm just looking at a website now. The first contentful paint that's when something actually comes up on the page. First meaningful paint is something that's actually going to provide information to the user. It also shows you the speed index, and that's how quickly the contents of the page are visibly populated. First CPU idle, when is the page's main thread able to handle an input? And then time to interactive, at what point is the page fully interactive? And then estimated input latency. That score is an estimate of how long the app or the page takes to respond to user input in milliseconds during the busiest 5-second window of the page loads. If it's higher than 50 milliseconds, then users are going to think that your page is a bit on the laggy side. Now, some pretty technical information in there. You don't need to get bogged down too much. The big thing is that it comes up with some opportunities. For most websites, they tend to be fairly much similar to, it's the common problems that occur commonly. Eliminate render blocking resources. You'll have a resource that might wait for something, and a lot of these are plugins that can take a long time to do their stuff. So you want to move them to the bottom of the load because of the fact that sometimes they're going to sit there waiting 1 or 2 seconds, and if they're right at the top, if it's the first thing, then your page is automatically 2 seconds behind the ball because of the fact that it's waiting for that plugin to get a response. Defer off-screen images. So back in the old days when you had newspapers, they used to talk about things being above the fold and below the fold. And that was because the newspaper would be folded in half and then it'd be put on the newsstand. And so you've obviously got your headline, you've got your photos, and you've got a couple of other stories in there. They were above the fold. They were expected to sell the newspaper. People would walk by and go, oh yeah, I'm interested in this headline, I'm going to buy the paper. In websites, that sort of terminology has come across. So anything that is in the first page full of information, so because most websites you're going to scroll down a bit, so there'll be more and more, and it might be 5, 10 pages long, but that first page, that's termed above the fold. So deferring off-screen images means that if you've got an image that's 2 or 3 screen scrolls down, you might load that later than the images and the content that's going to be on the first, the above the fold information. Unused CSS. CSS is cascading style sheet. That can bloat out a bit, needs to be pruned a bit. Serve images in next-gen formats. So there are some new image formats that are coming out that allow them to be delivered up a little bit quicker and to render quickly as well. And last one is properly sized images. You want to be really thinking about the size of image that you're going to be serving up because people are going to be waiting for that image, and it really depends. If you've got a beautiful image of your food and it's the hero image of the page, you might have that a little bit bigger so it looks better, it looks crisper and sharper. And for some that aren't so important, you might have them compressed quite a fair bit. The thing to remember with your page speed is that people on mobiles are often browsing on slower networks. So they may not have access to broadband speeds, and that's why speed is absolutely such a killer for people on a mobile. So we've covered a few things in this podcast. We talked about platform. I 100% believe it should be on WordPress. So we've got lots of websites our own. They are all in WordPress unless it's not a content development type website. So if it's an e-com platform or something else, we will use another platform. But for everything that's content related, we use WordPress. And millions and millions and millions of other people out there do that as well. So something to bear in mind. And we use WordPress because it's got the Yoast plugin. It makes the SEO so much easier. And we're going to be talking about that a bit next week. Make sure it's secure. It's pretty easy to do. It's a little bit of technical mucking around, but make sure that certificate's in there. Speed, speed, speed. Make sure that your websites are super quick. Google's looking at it, it's ranking them, and it's referring the traffic to the faster pages. And last one, you've got to make sure that it's mobile friendly. You will have much more likely to have more than 50% of your people coming on a mobile now. Have a think about your browsing habits and how much browsing you're doing on a mobile phone as opposed to doing on a desktop. I know for me, it's a lot more on my mobile phone than it is on a desktop. So they're the first 4 of our top 10 SEO tips for restaurant website SEO. Stay tuned for the next episode, and you have an outstanding day, and hopefully it's a busy week. Bye.
Want more customers for your restaurant, cafe or takeout? Every month, our marketing tools and information are used by thousands of restaurant owners just like you to help them find more customers and turn them into repeat customers. All of our tools and information is designed specifically for restaurant owners. We know you don't have a lot of time to spend marketing or learning complicated procedures, so our tools are quick and easy to use. If you're looking to increase your revenue and profits or want to work less hours, check out marketingforrestaurants.com.